Hey everybody, welcome back to the Laracasts snippet. I have an empty coffee mug in my hand because every time I do a new take, I sit in this chair and I say, hey everybody, welcome back to the Laracasts snippet. And then I take a sip of coffee to appear a little less formal. But I've done so many takes at this point. What is it? 11:30? I started this at 9. I've done so many takes that I now have nothing more than an empty coffee mug. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to tell you all about horses for courses, and then I'm going to make myself another cup of coffee. Okay? Okay. So, I don't know if you've heard the expression horses for courses. I have no clue how widespread it is as an idiom. In fact, idioms are like that, right? I grew up with this expression. Another one is keep your eyes peeled. The other month on Twitter, I put a tweet out, keep your eyes peeled. And I assumed everybody would know what that meant. Nope, turns out many people have never heard of it in their life. And in case you're wondering, keep your eyes peeled means keep your eyes open. Keep on the lookout because something's coming. Horses for courses is another of those expressions, and it means that if you're going to be racing horses, which of course I do all the time, if you're going to be racing horses, you better choose the right racehorse for the track. That's important. Another way of putting it is use the right tool for the job. Right? You wouldn't use a hammer to drive a screw into a block of wood. You should just use a screwdriver for that. I think this has great application when it comes to software because, especially in the web industry, we love tools. We love extra bells and whistles and tools that we can add into a project. And all of these tools promise to bring something to the table that our project absolutely needs. And without it, guess what? You might as well not have a project at all. So I was thinking about the tools that I actually install when I first create a Laravel project. Oh, Laravel, of course, right? Tailwind, got to have Tailwind. And Tailwind needs to be built. It uses PostCSS at the moment, so PostCSS. And then we have Vite. Got to be able to compile it, so we got Vite installed. And then I've got my Tailwind config file. I want to be able to make sure I have control over the linting of my front end, so ESLint, and maybe prettier as well. And then on the back end, I have Pint, so I can reformat my PHP code. Before that, I had a PHP CS fixer. And then I have Pest or PHP unit for writing tests, of course. And then I want to do static analysis, so I use PHP stan for that. And before long, I have 15 or 20 tools before I've even started a project. Now, these tools do help. They all have their benefits, and that's why many of them are popular. Take PHP stan, for example. PHP stan is a sledgehammer. It's a very powerful tool that adds static analysis to PHP projects. Sounds like an oxymoron. It's a cool tool. Anybody who's used PHP stan will tell you that it's very useful because it catches lots of edge case errors that you miss inside your tests. But it comes at a cost. And the cost is it takes time to actually think about and write these types, especially in PHP, because we are so used to not even having to worry about types in PHP that when that changes and we have to start thinking about strict typing, there's a large mental overhead to actually calculating, what should that generic be, or what should that array shape be? And if you have a few different developers on your team and all of them are very used to PHP's loose types, then it's even more of a problem. It can cause a lot of frustration, but it will save your backside on numerous occasions. So I have it installed in many of my larger projects. And up until recently, I had it installed on my personal blog, downing.tech. However, last week, Laravel 11 released, and I thought, I'm going to upgrade my personal site to use Laravel 11. I anticipated it being a 5-minute upgrade. However, in order to upgrade to Laravel 11, I also had to upgrade Larastan, which is a layer that sits between PHP stan and Laravel and helps out with some of the magic, let's say, that Laravel offers so that PHP stan can still do its magic. In upgrading Larastan, I also upgraded PHP stan, which brought along with it a whole host of brand new type checks that broke my application. That's the wrong way of putting it. It didn't break my application. It broke PHP stan checking my application, and it threw open maybe 40 new errors that it had found with my types. So what should have been a quick 5-minute upgrade on a personal blog became an hour and a half of trying to fix issues with generics in PHP on a project that has maybe 2 controllers and 6 endpoints. So halfway through fixing all of these issues, I stopped and I said to myself, horses for courses. Why have I got a sledgehammer in my hand here for a screw going into a plank of wood? You see, to manually test and check that my personal blog works takes me literally less than 5 minutes. I load it up, I go onto the different endpoints available, and I make sure that they return 200 responses. I also have some smoke tests written in Pest to check for those scenarios as well. Why do I need all the extra overhead of type checks for this personal blog? Also, even if PHP Stan caught a bug that I'd missed, does it really matter? I mean, this is a personal blog that I probably publish to once every 3 months, especially now I'm working for Laracasts and I'm creating content all the time on top of the blog. I very rarely actually get a chance to go back and write something, or if I do, I'm doubling up on content, which I don't want to do all the time. Do I really need to worry if a 500 error slips through? Because guess what's going to happen? Somebody is inevitably going to go to my blog and they'll see it's broken and they'll go to X or Twitter and they'll tell me, and then I'll fix it. I'm not earning money from the blog. It's not a vital part of my revenue or income. I don't need to worry that it has to have uptime and it can never go down or have problems. It's fine. So do I need all the overhead that PHP Stan brings? No. So I decided, whilst upgrading to Laravel 11, I was just going to remove PHP Stan. I'd get rid of it. I uninstalled it from Composer dependencies. And then I looked through my Composer dependencies and there were a few other things that I spotted. Sparsy Ray, for example. Sparsy Ray is an amazing tool for debugging, but do I need it? In this case, do I actually need it? No. I could just use dump and dump die because the project is so small in scope. So get rid of one more Composer dependency. A number of other tools also showed up. I had a PHP CS Fixer in there. Well, I have a global Pint installation now. Get rid of PHP CS Fixer and just run Pint. Leave it at that. It's fine. It's happy. I don't need all these custom formatting rules for PHP. Then I looked at the front end. Inertia and Vue. I wasn't using Inertia and Vue for 99% of my personal blog, but there was just a place where I used it for a couple of features. Was it actually necessary? Because the overhead that brings is you need to make sure Vite is up to date. You need to make sure the Inertia plugins are up to date and that Inertia is up to date. And then you've got Vue itself, which you need to make sure is kept up to date. And all the migrations on major versions for these tools, it's just not necessary. I could do 95% of that functionality with plain HTML and JavaScript and CSS. And when I actually stopped and thought about it, I didn't even need the JavaScript. So I removed those tools. And what I'm left with is my personal blog that has HTML, Laravel, it uses Blade to actually render that HTML, and then Tailwind for the CSS. Tailwind, yes, I'm going to have to update that over time, but basically I now have one backend tool and one front-end tool, and the next time I either have a major upgrade, I can guarantee it will only take me 5 or 10 minutes to update my personal site to use them. It's going to be so much easier to keep everything up to date because I'm no longer battling the tools. Horses for courses. Now, this is not to say that you shouldn't use these tools. You absolutely should use these tools if your project needs them. If you come across a situation where these tools genuinely help, they genuinely make you more productive as a developer, go ahead and install them. But don't start the project with these tools installed. Don't start a project with 20 tools that you're going to have to manage and spend a week setting up when you don't even have an MVP. Get something out there into the world first, and then as these tools become necessary, add them. One example of this that I've seen recently is Nuno Maduro's Pinkery. So Nuno Maduro, the creator of Pest, and he works on the Laravel core team, He created this link tree alternative called Pinkery. He put it together in a weekend and he shipped. I know Nuno loves tools. He loves tools to bits. And he was the one who introduced me to PHP Stan back in the day. But he didn't use those tools when building the MVP for Pinkery, because all they would have done is got in his way. He didn't have Livewire installed, he didn't have Inertia installed and Vue installed. He just used basic Blade and Laravel, and then a little bit of Tailwind CSS sprinkled on top. And then as it became obvious that those tools would actually improve the experience, both for him and for his users, then he added them down the line. And a couple of weeks later, he did put out a tweet that said he'd added 100% type checking to Pinkery. He'd gone ahead and done that because it made sense at the point he was at. But he'd not done it until the tool became necessary, until it became necessary to pull out a sledgehammer and start using it. So I see this as kind of the bell curve meme. There you are on the left-hand side, and I don't know, let me have a look at the camera. Is this left? I think this is left. If not, I'll have to switch it around in post. But on the left-hand side, there you are. You start your career as a Laravel developer or as a PHP developer, and everything's simple. You don't know about PHP Stan. You don't know about Vite. You don't know about all these tools that you have to use if you want to build anything decent in the web. So everything's nice and straightforward. You have Laravel, you use Blade, you do what the docs tell you. Yeah. And then as you learn more, you get to the top of that bell curve, and you say, oh, you've got to have PHP Stan, you've got to have Vite, you've got to have Tailwind, you've got to have ESLint, you've got to have Prettier, you've got to have all of these tools because they improve things and they make us better as developers. And you're not wrong, but you could be using a sledgehammer to drive a screw home. So for me, at this point, I'm coming back down the other side of that bell curve meme. I'm hopefully landing with the Jedi in the hood, saying, yeah, you know what? We don't need all of these tools all the time. Horses for courses. There we go. That's all I've got to say. The next time you have a project, actually stop and think, do I really need this? Will it actually benefit me to add this specific tool to this project? Is it going to save me time? Or when it comes to upgrading or altering the project in some way, is it actually going to cost me time and make it more frustrating to keep this up to date in the future? Keep your dependencies slim. Only add tools when absolutely necessary. Anyway, I'm ready for another coffee. So I'll see you next time. This is the Laracast snippet. Goodbye.